Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me for a new season of Scream Queens. Today, I will be reviewing Season 2, Episode 1, called Scream Again. Pretty original title, I have to say. And there will be episode spoilers, just a heads up on that. So, in my opinion, the first episode of a season should do a good job of introducing new characters if there are any. The plot doesn't have to be great, but it should leave you wanting more for the upcoming season. And I have to say, this episode was a mixed bag overall for me. I thought it started strong and ended strong. I did think it lagged a bit in the middle. And I thought it lost a little bit of the charm that it had last season. But overall, I would give it the benefit of the doubt and say it was pretty good. And there were a couple of really funny moments. So we basically start, which is probably going to be our main plot for the season, where a doctor and a nurse basically decide not to try and save a patient because it's Halloween night and they want a party, which was kind of amusing in a disturbing way. And basically, his wife is a pregnant woman. I think we know where this is all going to lead later in the season, based on Scream Queens from last year. We are also introduced to some other new characters throughout this episode. Two doctors, Dr. Cascade and Dr. Holt. And I have to say, welcome to the cast to John Stamos. He seems like he will be a good addition. We also learned that Dr. Holt lost his hand in an accident in a pretty interesting scene, and I'm sure that will come into play as well. Dean Munch is also back, and somehow now she's Dr. Dean Munch, and she's the one responsible for opening this new hospital where the doctors work, which is kind of strange and interesting. Not sure what her motives are yet. And the Dean's backstory on what's happened in the time that's passed since her time at the college was pretty amusing. We also get a flashback that shows the Chanels and what they've been up to since we've last seen them. And this was a pretty good scene too, including getting a cameo from Denise. I thought that was pretty interesting. Zayday is also a medical student and also working at this hospital. So basically a pretty good job is done of working in all our characters that we had before, except for Chad Radwell, who's strangely missing. Pretty sure he's going to be in this season, but I have to say he was one of my favorites last season, and it will be nice when Glenn Powell returns to the show, which I'm pretty sure he is. So, some other things that happen in this episode. Everybody meets back up, basically. We learn that Dr. Holt couldn't get a job because of his hand accident, and he's thankful to the dean for giving him another chance. We're also introduced to some other new characters. There's a nurse's aide assistant named Chamberlain, and he was an interesting character, pretty upbeat, but we only get one scene with him, which wasn't really enough to develop his character that well. I'm sure we'll get more in the future. We also get some flashbacks to the jobs that the Chanels had before, which were funny, and the use of Adam Ant music in the background was pretty good as well. This show usually does it pretty good with the soundtrack, although I thought it was kind of average throughout this episode. Basically, what gets everything together is the dean offers the Chanels jobs to train to be doctors. I'm not sure what her motives are yet, but that should be interesting for the most part. And it's also funny, Chanel Oberlin's reaction when she meets Dr. Brock. She really likes him a lot. We also meet one more new character, a Nurse Ingrid, played by Kirstie Alley, and she's fine, but again, her character seems a little underdeveloped. All we really know about her is she doesn't really like the Chanels at this point, and I have a feeling she will be a mislead as the killer, but we'll see if I'm right or wrong as the season goes along. So the basic other plot of this story was this girl that's basically a werewolf, and everybody's trying to come up with a cure for her. I thought this plot was pretty average and not that interesting. They tried to make it pretty humorous, but I didn't laugh at it that much. I actually thought everything else in the episode was more interesting. But it does connect to the end of the episode, so at least the plot had a purpose. So eventually, Chanel Oberlin and the doctor, Dr. Holt, cure this girl, and then she gets a makeover, and all these scenes were pretty interesting. I guess it's pretty strange. Ultimately, the plot goes in an interesting direction. The last 5 minutes or so were really good. I thought they kind of saved this episode, honestly. Where Chanel number 5 basically draws night duty, just because she's Chanel number 5. No other real reason. I guess she was the one that didn't have a date or something. And she's trying to help our former werewolf girl, basically. And they take these weird baths. I'm not sure what they're supposed to accomplish. And Chanel locks them both in, which isn't a good idea. Because, of course, we are introduced to our killer. A new killer who basically kills the former werewolf girl. And it doesn't look good for Chanel number 5 either. It looks like she might be killed here, but they don't really show it for sure, so I'm a little bit skeptical. As Chanel number 5 had a way of getting out of a lot of trouble last year, but it does appear she's a goner. But like I said, on this show, I'm not really sure. If they do go in that direction, it'll be an interesting twist. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I did think the end of the episode did an effective job of giving us, leaving us wanting more for the rest of the season. I didn't think some of the subplots, like the plot with the werewolf girl, were that great. And no Chad Radwell heard it. The soundtrack was good overall, but not the best the show's ever done. Overall, I would say this is an acceptable first episode of the season, not great. Normally, I'd give it a 2.5 out of 5, just average. But because it's the first episode of the season, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a 3 out of 5. Because it did leave me interested in what happens next week. So if you'd like, you can leave me a comment and tell me if what you thought of this premiere episode for season 2, if you liked it or not, what you liked, what you disliked. And as always, thank you very much for watching.